Place 33, Secrets of Universal Truths Revealed by Sherilyn Bridget Avalon.
Chapter 11, Mystery of Being.
Sherilyn goes back to Phoenix to see her therapist. Sherilyn explains her adventures to her therapist. So, we run into this entity named Joseph Campbell as he is trying to complete his quest for transcendence. And every time we run into him, he relays a little more of his experiences on the other side. Joseph sits on a log. He lost his foot. He practically falls off his log as we come into the place through the elevator of enlightenment. We each greet each other, and this is what happens. Hi, Joseph. Sterling greets him. We are looking for a female thought that is lost in the pool of knowledge. I did see a lost soul on level 7, Joseph comments, but I really want to explain what I have been learning, as he is eager to get started with his essay. He says, Earth isn't much different from where I'm at now. You don't see with your eyes, you don't hear with your ears, you feel it in a much more in-depth, crisp, ultra-reality. When the universe began, life emerged through a process that was the antithesis of the Big Bang Theory. The fragments of energy were millions and billions of times smaller than a cell's nucleus. Extremely infinitesimal, self-feeding and self-expanding particles started the phenomenon. Without time, there is no space. Without space, there is no time, and there's a boundary to it. Eventually, it expands beyond its saturation point. Then it recoils, and mass will stick together again. Finally, it will return back to that fragment of energy, and then we start all over again, Joseph explains. As all of life is sorrowful. You have misplaced qualities in your sphere. What I call a feminine being. When you are calm, you attract. When you are aggressive, you repel. It's nice to meet you too, Joseph, Sherilyn says sarcastically in love. Knowing that there are no secrets here, all is revealed. Angie likes Joseph. She says he is at the pinnacle of his sphere. Joseph's sphere is dawn-like. Joseph wants us to know that eternity is not something coming in the future. It is in the here and now. Sternly relays to Sherilyn. He continues, if you can, put your mind in a transcendental thought state, a nirvana state. God is thought, or an idea. The reference to God speaks beyond the parameters or boundaries of thought. That's a transcended place. Beyond space and time. And this field is only one that's experienced, not defined. It dwells within us and without. When you find it, you find the field of opposites, made of male and female polarity. They take on form, and you perceive, giving each person the life they're living. For example, the field is magnetic and near the tree of illumination. The best things in life are matters that can't be described or written. It is impossible to try and explain it. Just experience it. When you go to the field, make sure you understand how a trilogy works.
A trilogy? Yes.
Situate your mind directly in between the pair of opposites. Oh yeah, that's cool, Sherilyn says. When you go to the field, this is how you must explore it, Joseph relays. We're on level 7, the place of mysteries revealed. What do you see, Sherilyn? Joseph asks, watching him from his log perch. Look to the left, Sherilyn says, as she giggles. It looks like a Z, but it's a 7. What is it? It's the base of the 7, Joseph replies. The bottom of the level looks like a line because it's so flat, which makes it look like a Z. The 7 represents mysteries revealed. That's why it gained the reputation for being so lucky. It's a very important place. You go along the bottom and go up the tunnel, travel up the first bend, then take a left, and then wind up at the end of the left line on the top. It's like a bubble at the end. You are at the end of it or the beginning, depending on your perspective. It is very abstract here, very magical. The birthplace of the number 7, Joseph interjects. Numbers are born? Sherilyn questions, perplexed. Metaphors for different types of movement, St. Stephan replies. Math is actually quite abstract. It just looks like it's not. Feel how elastic it is. I have never explored this part of the left. It's different. There is so much to see here. It has an interesting, hairy kind of fiber look to it. It's kind of fuzzy. It's quite dramatic in the way it looks. It really is light, kind of bluish green, very clear. It's white with a bluish green cast on it, Joseph replies. Here comes a mystery. I see the lost girl. Her name is Jane, and she's with some children. They all died of AIDS. That's what they're saying. I'm in a barrel, or maybe a cavern. Yes, in the cavern, you can see the fish, St. Stephan reveals. Then we flash back to the therapist in 3D. The fish, the therapist replies. Sherilyn started speaking again. Yes, they're fish in Africa. There are larvae in the river and in the fish, the blind fish. They're blind from the disease. Mostly, they're found in carp, scavenger fish in Africa. No one would ever think of it. The vaccine to cure the disease is in the worm, the larvae. Researchers can do it. Scientists don't believe it yet, but it is true. The cure, a live vaccine, is in the larvae, Jane said. Jane said it was, and she died of AIDS. She knows the truth. What river in Africa? Asked the therapist. It starts with a G, Sherilyn replies. Sounds like Gonchi, or Gonchi River in North Sudan. The river leads out of the country. It sounds like that. Sherilyn tries to remember, but isn't sure. Or maybe Gambi River. The river leads out of the country. Scientists could develop the vaccine very cost-effectively. It's so obvious the cure to AIDS can be found in a small polluted river in Sudan. Let's ask Angie and Frank if it's true. Then onward to level 33. Sherilyn explains to the therapist. Being on this lily pad at the place on level 33, getting filled with water, and our feet are dangling in the clear white water as we look at the spheres of energy floating around us. St. Stephan says, rivers are the arteries of our planet. The steady flow of clean, fresh water is an essential element for vast ecosystems and the health and survival of billions of people. Yes, I believe that, the therapist interjects. Sherilyn's asking St. Stephan about her friend Louise, who just crossed over. She had AIDS, too. How is my friend Louise doing? Do you see her? Can you communicate with her? The therapist asked. Yes, because she's hoping she'll meet someone from the same sphere as Sterling when she returns. Why is that? Asked the therapist. Louise is very pleased. She's peering in on one face of 3. Her face appears vibrantly alive. It looks the same as it did before she was truly sick with AIDS. And St. Stephan reports Sherilyn. She looks over you. She passionately wants to be seen. This will continue another 3 to 5 weeks. She has to visit half again past the 13th hour. What do you mean, one face of three? The therapist asked. I noticed this face in my room last night. I was going to mention that to you, Sherilyn replies. I mentioned that to St. Stephan. St. Stephan said, she's pleased you found a guidepost, a guiding light, and she watches with interest now. Only the face of Louise is left. There's a line between the spaces which allows her to see 2 levels, half again beyond the 13th hour, which is where she'll find the other 2/3 of herself. Why are there 3 faces? The therapist asks. Sherilyn replies, the third face is the one she sees through, lived through. She needs to fill herself up completely with the emotions left from her life that lives in the people that she left behind. Once she's absorbed the reflection of the emotion that she left in them, and she's connected to them, then she'll finally complete her transition. This will happen in 5 weeks, and it will be half again past the 13th hour. She looks with intent. She's completely happy to be free from her body. Yeah, I bet she is, Sherilyn said. She was in so much pain with that horrible AIDS. Louise likes Sterling very much. She isn't jealous of me. She always has been content for me. She became happy. A level of pain allowed her to look on things from her forgiven face. Is she forgiven soul now? The therapist asked. Now she's forgiven, St. Stephan told me this. Sherilyn replies.
She wasn't before? The therapist questioned.
Sherilyn explains. Next time, when she comes back, she'll be forgiven. When she does, she'll choose with a forgiven mindset. It's in between level 13 and 14. When she finds her other 2/3 of herself, then her 3 faces will be whole. She'll start over in a manner that will be less painful and more enlightened. Louise will eventually have a life with someone who reminds her of her boyfriend Tom. She's glad she taught Tom what he needed. Sherilyn rambled. Tom is saturated with pain. He's experiencing emotional torture from the loss, knowing he will never speak to Louise again, the one whom he came to love so very much. This is what she says in her own way, without moving her lips. Do you see her face? Asked the therapist. I did in my room, this pink energy with the 3 faces. I don't anymore, Sherilyn said, wishing she could see Louise once more. There's not a lot left. She has a glowing white face with a pink hue, blue eyes that are deep set. Otherwise, it looks like her. She has no illness here. And it sounds like an orb to me, replies the therapist. Louise asked me why I don't feel more remorseful when people pass on. I answered her question. I said, I'm not sure, Louise. I guess it's because I believe you're in a better place now. Should I feel more remorse? You're finally out of your pain from AIDS. I doubt it would be better for you here. Louise said, you hide your emotions in glass tubes. It appears that way as she looks at me from her dimension. She thinks I should empty the tubes and dispose of them. She says, do that and you'll have a more free correlation between your feelings, what you know, and your experiences. My reaction confuses her because she doesn't know me that well. She watches over her family for 3 more weeks, and then she will watch her faces integrate. At that point, she'll be a whole person who has transmuted, and when she returns, it'll be on a higher level of consciousness. I explained to the therapist. I impart to Louise, I'm so sorry you had to go through so much pain, with very genuine sadness this time. She says, you should cry more. She's communicating. She was allowed to look at the red tape, and she hopes one day to gaze at the gold tape, Sherilyn remarks. Oh, really? What's on the red tape? The therapist asked. Sherilyn explains.
It
Stores information of orientation by fire. There is a level of great understanding about instinct and the wisdom that arises from the understanding of instinct. This is in contrast to which are transcendent or divine beyond the realm of nature. For those who have the privilege of, or good fortune, as Louise calls it, to view the gold tape. The gold tape stores information from the inception of man. Viewing the gold tape is an experience she passionately wants. However, that's not exactly how it works. One has to be at higher consciousness to view it. Louise had a message for Tom, Sherilyn explained. Things aren't always as they appear. She said that love really can be a very enlightening thing. It doesn't have to involve reciprocation in the way that he had previously thought. She hopes Tom realizes her love for him will always live, and it will remain in his mind until he dies and transmutes himself, because it's real. St. Stephan told me that, and it should comfort him. As long as the thought stays alive, then she'll be alive in fragments with him and anyone else who remembers her. It's like sprinkling water on flowers. The thought of the person is the flower, and the energy coming from the mind that's crossed over is the water. The interaction is in the living person's subconscious mind. She's done a good job, and she suffered a great deal. Every pore of her body was pain-filled. That sounds like what my biological father said when he did that contest about the soul, Sherilyn said. It's terrible. The pain. Wincing in empathy for my friend. St. Stephan explained to me what Louise telepathically relayed. She thinks you should be careful. If you don't stop hiding your feelings and get in touch with them, you won't meet the challenge of your true potential. You'll have to come back and live it all over again. She can see this, the therapist probes. Well, St. Stephan explained it to me. Not totally. There's 1/3 of me she doesn't see. Louise has good intent, however. I told Louise I appreciate her and I thanked her, and I'm trying to empty my glass tubes. I am facing a lot of emotional pain like she suffered through her physical pain. It's terrible. And then St. Stephan said, yes, let's move forward. Louise is fine. Louise is in no danger, and she's learned her lesson. Frank is smiling, and Angie says it's okay. Next time it won't be so grueling for her. I'm relieved, says Sherilyn, knowing how much pain Louise suffered with age is difficult, but I am glad the lesson is complete. Then St. Stephan said, let's go to the place Louise inadvertently commented upon, and let's climb back into the elevator, and off we go. We say our goodbyes to Louise, tell her we love her, and ask if she can come with us. St. Stephan says she can hear from her perspective and see through her face. Let's go back to level 28 for a second. Let's get in the mist. I want you to breathe in the green mist for a while. If you aren't from a higher level of consciousness, you can't go there. Her vibration couldn't take it. We're at level 28, and the door whooshes open. We both inhale deeply, a whiff of the green mist. Refreshing, chlorophyll, like freshly cut grass. Don't talk, just breathe it in, St. Stephan says. Hey, Joseph, do you want to come with us to level 13 and a half? Can he come? Sherilyn asked St. Stephan. Because St. Stephan is very indulgent with his daughter, he nods yes, allowing her to have her whims. And we bring Joseph along, and Louise listens. Then St. Stephan said, we need to understand how saturation works. I know no matter how much an individual contemplates, it doesn't detract from his beingness. The individual is so malleable, no fragment belonging to him is ever lost. It always returns. Joseph, unfortunately, does not enjoy that degree of security. That's why he's stuck. He didn't trust enough in his own wisdom and genius. He allowed pain and fear to overwhelm him in his judgment. Faith is a pivotal thing. We create our own reality. What you believe is where you live, and we all live in our minds. If you believe you can be strong enough to allow people to take bits and pieces from you and run away from you, they can run hundreds and thousands of miles away. Eventually, the strength of your gravitational pull will ultimately lead you to become whole again. When you have peace of mind deep within, nothing will defeat you. It doesn't matter how many pieces you're broken into, you know eventually you'll be whole again. That kind of belief is undefeatable. We're filled with the water from the mist now, refreshed, clear, and ready to see something different, because we haven't been there before. St. Stephan relayed, "Okay, we're here. We're at level 13 and 1/2. It's an interesting place. Frank's here," he declared. "Why is it 13 and 1/2? The therapist interjects. "Let me ask St. Stephan," Sherilyn says. St. Stephan replied, "Because this is where time stops. There's a balance as it moves diametrically forward and backwards. Therefore, there's no time on this level. Time doesn't move ahead, nor does it move backwards. In an odd twist, it moves equally in both directions at the same time. It's not just the 13th hour, but also half past the 13th hour. The margin of error lies here on this level."
Frank walks into the room, of course, he's naked. Take a good look, Joseph. This is where you went off. The origin of physics resides on this level. The roots are embedded in the stillness. The margin of error is an integration of time and space. All have levels or futuristic ones like this. They deal primarily with the lines between the spaces. We can see incredibly complex spheres of energy once we get inside. The complexity leads us first to physics, a physical manifestation of the spirit. In your world's time, only metaphysicians understood this notion.
"What is physics? Mathematics or calculus?" Sherilyn asked Frank.
Physics has its root here at the level of the margins of error. It's not on the level of understanding, but on the level of non-understanding. At that level, we discover where physics gets its roots, Frakes indicated.
"Oh, so you mean reaching that point which you do not know?" Sherilyn asked.
Let's be specific. Physics is one particular behavioral study. It explores the observation, navigation, and manipulation of particles. That's a pretty good working definition, Frank said. Then he takes a deep breath and continues. Extend it out to particles and waves so small you actually enter the realm of non-existence. The mirror principle until the nth degree is involved. Now you understand the basics of physics. However complex, we can get inside a sphere of particles and they can be mapped, Frank explains. The people intelligent enough to map such things developed the realm of study called physics. It simply doesn't matter how small or how many of the particles exist. They can be charted and patterns gradually emerge. Some physicists use the patterns to justify the existence of God and spirit. Others use them to justify atheism.
They can be calculated in an infinite manner, so there is no presence of a higher power. They see it as merely stuff with a predictable pattern and an understandable rule of margin, St. Stephan concluded. "Joseph, you can come along too. Climb in here with Sherilyn and I. Angie is watching. Frank is watching. However, he's frowning because he knows we're about to discover something big, St. Stephan relayed. See how complex the sphere of particles is if you cast an ultraviolet light on it through radium? Then you see it even more clearly. The patterns do something fascinating once you've taken them all. They are infinitely changing, St. Stephan articulates. Let's go back in the elevator. The therapist commands, push the button, please. To number 1. They leave Joseph there at level 28 as he watches and uncovers more. After saying their goodbyes to Joseph, they return to the elevator. Sherilyn follows the therapist's instructions, and the elevator opens to her office. I'm back, Sherilyn replies groggily as she wakes up on her therapist's couch and says, Did I say anything interesting?